So we're really excited for you to join us today. I'm Cristi Ford, Vice President of Academic Affairs at D2L, and one of the things that we love to do in terms of academic affairs is have thought leadership conversations. I'm really excited to be joined by my good friend and colleague, Angela Gunder. I'll let Angela introduce herself in just a minute, but we're going to spend some time just talking about provocations around academic innovation. And so before we jump in, Angela, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dr. Angela Gunder, and I am the founder and leader of a collaboratory called Opened Culture. And one of the things that we really talk about are realistic, actionable, practical ways to enact academic innovation that really supports student success. So I'm super excited about this conversation that we're going to have today and to learn more about the amazing work that each of you are doing around academic innovation.
So on to the real stars, the three of you. I'll have you introduce yourself, but then I want you to answer a question. How do you define academic innovation in your own words, and how are you using the work that you're doing at your institutions to lever as a lever for academic innovation?
Okay. I'll start. Lisa Gabriel. I work at Parker University in Dallas, Texas. We're a healthcare institution with approximately 2,200 students. So academic innovation, from our perspective, is really enabling the tools that create student success. And so the tool isn't always technology. That's an option. And we want to provide our faculty and our students with as many tools in their toolbox to create student satisfaction and student success. But academic innovation is really going beyond what maybe a faculty member was trained how to do and how we have always done things, whether that's in the classroom or outside of the classroom, to ensure that we're meeting the student where they are and giving them the resources that they need.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Dr. Errin Heyman. I'm the Associate Vice President for Learning Experience at National University. And gosh, academic innovation, it could be almost anything, right?
That's right.
Yes. In some ways, I think it's really just using what we know about education research, about neuroscience, about neurodiversity, and putting it into play.
Yes.
Not relying on the traditional lecture, not relying on the traditional print, and what we have settled on forever.
Yep.
I think being innovative is taking what we know works best and putting it into place. And not that that's easy, but being able to say, we know that interleaving works. We know that, being able to reinforce and forced retrieval and all of the pieces, and that D2L is releasing some of the AI is really exciting.
Yes.
So being able to take that information, put it into place, and help faculty understand this is why we do this, and this is how it can help your students. So really just looking at student success through what we've known for quite a while.
Fantastic.
Aloha, I'm Dr. Gloria Niles. I am the Director of Academic Technologies and Online Learning for the University of Hawaii System. And I would define academic innovation as my colleagues say, any tool, whether that's technology or not, that makes learning authentic for the person and personalized for the individual, that makes learning accessible anytime, any place, anywhere, at the right time and in the right context for each individual learner. And doesn't make it one size fits all, where we're trying to fit the learner into the learning context, but we're adapting the learning context and innovating it to the personalized learner.
That's fantastic.
I was going to say that I don't know that you knew that you were setting this up perfectly. But all three of you planted these seeds for us to allow to grow now. But just talking about the human in terms of student success, talking about how we're not really applying new concepts, new pedagogies, new methodologies when we think about what technology should be within that academic innovation cycle, and then also not treating our students as a monolithic population when we think about those learning experiences. So that takes me, a long-winded way of taking me to the next question, which is let's think about that future of education where we're really differentiating the education for the specific learner, especially with the tools that we have with generative AI. What does that future of learning need to look like? And what are some of the things that we should be doing right now to prepare for that future of learning?
I really think it's back to sort of a DIYU opportunity. Anya Kamenetz wrote about it in, 2007, 8?
Yeah.
And really just the idea of mentorship, apprenticeship. I know that Stephen Laster talked a little bit at the Executive Summit about the best education experience he had was truly when he was apprenticing to be a shipbuilder.
Yeah.
That mentorship, the apprenticeship piece, that really the coaching, the one-on-one, I mean, it goes back to Greek society. So I think in some ways it's back to the future to the back, and being able to really think about how can we individualize. The content's out there. Content is no longer king, hasn't been for many years.
That's right.
So how do we cultivate those opportunities and ideas and experiences for students that then can fit in to credit hours and all the things that we still have to deal with, but be able to really individualize it, whether it's online or face-to-face or anywhere in between. I think that idea of individualization and curating content is the future.
That's great.
Yep.
And I think the technology that has come out in the last couple of years is really enabling that in a way that we have never seen before. And so, especially with AI, and we all know that, it will offer us a level of personalization and individual education experiences that we have not been able to produce before just because of the bandwidth. I mean, we just don't have enough faculty and teachers and tutors for every student, and yet we could actually get there, and I'm excited about that.
And I would add to that, that particularly with generative AI, and we always think about keeping the human in the loop.
Yes.
And so we want to find ways where we're augmenting our humanity
Yes.
with the capabilities of generative AI.
Well said.
And so the three things that I think of are authenticity, making learning authentic for the learner, and creativity and skills. And so we all have a level of creativity, and we can all imagine, like if I was, the perfect artist, I could paint, this wonderful picture, or if I was a dancer, I could choreograph the perfect dance to express
Yes.
what I know or what I'm trying to convey. And generative AI gives us those capabilities.
Right.
We now have the capability to be an artist, to take our creative imagination and generate that with the augmentation of AI.
I love the fact that, again, the three of you have talked on really different concepts here, and I really like how they weave together. Thank you for reminding us content has not been king for a long time, but thinking about what you offered in terms of the authenticity pieces and really thinking about the connection to what you offered, Lisa. And so as I think about the future maybe of professional learning, or maybe some examples that you're thinking about in terms of how professional learning can be a part of this process, back to Angela's earlier point around student success, are there ways that we should be thinking about this differently? Have you seen models or had aha moments with faculty that have really spurred you to think that we need to be doing this differently in the specific discipline of professional learning?
One comes to mind with a faculty member in education, and as I was doing professional development on authentic assessments
Yes.
and really encouraging faculty to have students use assessments for an audience of more than one, more than just their professor who's going to read and evaluate and assess their work, but really thinking of that as a broader audience. And so this particular example for elementary teacher candidates had them create their own children's book.
Oh, wow.
And
nice.
so they became an author. Each student became an author. The professor was an editor of these books that then were put into our library repository
wow.
that
That's
could be then shared, because those teacher candidates were now authors of their openly sourced children's book.
Talk about innovation.
Right there.
Love that.
And the
And
durable
authentic.
skills that are being built
Yes.
that will be applied in so many other
Yes.
settings.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think the most important part is that the students leave feeling really connected to
Yeah.
Yeah.
what
The
they've
work.
learned and
Right.
what they've been able to do.
And their
And
and the
empowered.
agency.
Empowered.
Yeah, and the agency and empowerment, yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts about professional learning specifically?
How do we need to prepare
Yes.
our educators?
I think we give them a lot of exposure and help them. I think it's hard. They're not technologists, especially when we talk about the technology side of learning and innovation. You know, in our healthcare environment, and I would assume in your environments as well, they're experts in their field. They're not expert educators. They're not expert technologists. They're not expert. They're great English professors, or they're great, in our environment, chiropractors or sonographers. And so exposing them to the different opportunities and actually showcasing how that can happen. We do a lot of demo days where we showcase either technology or we showcase different pedagogical methodologies that they then can pick and choose what they think will work in their scenario. And then we work with instructional designers to help them actually implement that. But I think we've gone a lot further than we anticipated going with some tools like AR and VR. AI, I mean, we have a faculty member who is using AI in a very, like, I'm going to give you a case study. Instead of you writing a differential diagnosis, I want you to give it to ChatGPT. And now I want you to do the research and tell me why it's right or it's wrong.
Yep.
What ChatGPT gave us back, or whatever generative AI tool that they want to use. And so I think it's just, for us, it's a lot of exposure to different technologies, different tools, different methodologies.
You know, as I listen to you give that example, it just reminds me, I mean, we talk about academic innovation, right? It's big and small, and it can be so many different things. But I think when you offer that example around AI, I think academic innovation is pushing our faculty to, you know, think pedagogically differently around assessment and evaluation and engagement.
And so, their positionality.
That's right.
Their role in the classroom.
That's right. And so as you are thinking about these kinds of things for your institutions, what are some of the things that are coming up for you all?
Yeah, well, I think too, as for professional development and exposure, learn about the brain. You don't have to be a neuroscientist, but learn some basics about how our brains work, how we learn. And it can be very, subtle. And so a lot of the things that we do at National is through a templatized approach or a framework approach to how we build classes and design classes with our learning experience designers, and how we really interweave and weave in those concepts, again, of interleaving, of force retrieval, and several other ideas that really help engage how the brain works naturally. And so talking through that with faculty, being able to explain why these elements are in the framework where they are, helps really elevate their knowledge of the brain and how we can better teach and learn. And so I think that's one of the bigger things to look at. I also think it's really important for folks to know about ADA compliancy, especially online. We have to. And so that draws in more ways to be connected and more ways to, not just the basics of if somebody needs a screen reader, if somebody needs different ways to absorb the content, it also helps bring in some of the inclusion elements as well. And I think it's really important.
Good points.
I think it's important that we keep in mind the perspective of the faculty member and how quickly and easily they can be overwhelmed with the amount of technology, the amount of change that's happening in the world. And thinking back to what Tom Tobin mentioned this morning with Universal Design for Learning and the +1. Take one step at a time. Try one thing. Don't try and do it all at the same time, but one step at a time. And if we meet our faculty where they are and help guide them into what's that next step that you can take, and then when they're comfortable with that, we can together support you in taking the next step. And really thinking of a guided approach as opposed to a sort of a waterfall of change.
And as I'm listening to you, Gloria, it just reminds me just of academic innovation, period, right? Like that iterative approach. You have to really kind of continue to evolve, continue to tweak. And I think that is just true in all of the work that we're doing in these spaces.
Absolutely. I think that we make collecting data, collecting feedback and information a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And as long as we can build a culture where we can share with each other, we can iterate, We can pilot things, talk about what went right, what went wrong. We'll be better prepared for that future that we're building towards.
Agreed. I'm going to go off script just a little bit. Ask one final question. If you had a call to action, a lessons learned to share, as we're talking about academic innovation, if we're thinking about course design and delivery, we're talking about student success, what might that be?
So I come at it from probably a different perspective. So my background is technology, and we've had such significant change. And my background is also leading change management, leading change, leading initiatives. So if I had one recommendation for our faculty, for our staff, for us, it's lean into the change. We've had so much change lately that if we can just keep leaning forward, we'll be okay. And we can lean forward in small steps.
Yes.
To your point, it's a very valid point and necessary. But for me, it's keep leaning forward, and we'll continue to improve how we teach. We'll use better methodologies and better research to inform our teaching. And better tools. So.
Yeah, love that. Lean forward. Ask your students. Bring your students in.
That's
And
so
talk
true.
about, gathering input, gathering feedback, bring it back into the design. Your students will tell you. They'll tell you if something's working. I mean, yes, you'll see it through grades, but you'll see, but bring them into the conversation.
Yeah.
That's very true.
They'll let you know.
And I'd add intentionality, both for those who are the tech enthusiasts that want to bring everything in, but find really what are you trying to improve, or what problem are you trying to solve, and how can the technology support that? And for those on the opposite end of the change averse that want to keep things exactly the way they've always been, is that intentionality and flexibility, and how can we take that small step towards improving and innovating.
Same question for you.
Call to action. I think I'm going to +1 your comment about the student voice, but I'm going to take it a step further and say, think about inviting your students into that conversation at the beginning.
Yes.
A lot of times we think about it as a reactive response. Hey, how did we do? Invite them to the table in the beginning.
That's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Throughout.
Fail forward fast, but keep going to change. Engaging the students. Invite them from the beginning. I loved all of those different combinations.
Exciting time for us to be working in this space.
It is indeed.
Gloria, Errin, Lisa, really grateful for the conversation today. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
for
you very
having us.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.